This is Jesse Daniel Edwards. I'm listening to No Good Music.
For my health, woke up the next day and could not even remember my name. Instant regret, never mind. Just forget.
Hello.
Greetings. We can't see you. I can hear you.
Here we are.
Oh,
Hello.
there you are. Oh, you're on the beach. What's going on there?
I'm at the pool.
Oh, very nice.
Doing the pool thing. Just reading some Frank Stanford.
Okay.
The Singing Nine.
So are you in Nashville?
I am. Yes, I'm in Nashville.
Let me do a little intro for you first. We have a special guest with us today. He's poolside, and he's a singer-songwriter. Just released his newest album, Violensia.
Violensia.
Let's welcome to No Good Music, Mr. Jesse Daniel Edwards. So there might be a slight delay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we're referencing my lack of perception as I describe myself there with a slight delay. I thought I introduced the parties.
You're originally from California. And
That's right.
And what I find interesting is... I'm sorry. Go on.
I'm dancing around said delay. But yes, I grew up in a very small town in the mountains of Southern California.
Now, what I found interesting is you grew up with no TV, internet, but did you have music in your life?
Well, it was about always, we had my siblings and I, we had a lot of chores, and that occupied a fair amount of our time. And then we had books. That's sort of why I learned to love to read, to divert myself and transport myself from my modest surroundings. And then we had some instruments laying around from members, older family members, some of them in various states of disrepair. And we sort of evoked the sound out of them. We learned to sing harmony together, and writing was just a vehicle by which we could sort of learn to utilize these instruments, because it was in the days before YouTube and the internet. So if you want to learn something, you just had to sort of wrestle with it until it gave up or you. So we were looking at you look at a guitar and it's just a chunk of wood with these metal strings, and you just hold it and you have no idea how to make it sing. And at the risk of constantly and perpetually reinventing the wheel, you stick with it long enough, eventually things start to place. And it's one of those things that back then it couldn't be rushed. I think, with the state and the pace of life speeding up so much in these modern times, there's a lot of corners to get cut. I don't think I ever would have negotiated my own unique style in anything if I hadn't done the back-breaking, grinding, tedious work of reinventing the wheel. I didn't invent finger plucking, but I had to kind of figure out in this little tiny influxes of beat bad or phrasing, or hammering on, or pulling off, and certainly with the piano. And somewhere therein, personal style can be born because you've gone through it in real time. And I think now, apart with, people looking at so many aspects of life as disposable or at least fleeting, including people's attention span, which is why I made this a very short record. Due to my attention span, or rather the attention span of my budget, which was not existed. But back then when I was doing music with my sisters, you had to put in the legwork, and I'm glad we did, even though it was frustrating at times, but maybe that frustration was a key ingredient And I don't know if people are frustrated enough anymore. But yeah, that was childhood music. That was what we did. That's all we had.
So, which was your first instrument to attack to wrestle with?
Well, my first tour was milking the goats, and I bring that up. You know, speaking of real time, you can never take a day off. I mean, it could be, not that I don't really celebrate Christmas, but Christmas Day, you'd be up at 5 a.m. milking these goats, and if it was snowing, the only warmth were those milk bags, those udders. You'd be on for dear life in the frostbite, and just massaging those udders and taking your time with it, really coaxing that milk out, and maybe taking sip from the bucket, fresh milk right off the goats.
Yeah. But
basically, that's how the day started, and you couldn't get to music until all that stuff was done. So the windows for recreation, that was before school. Then there was school, which was just arduous. I mean, it is for anybody. I mean, you're a young person, your soul and spirit are just completely free, and yet you're meant to just sort of be inferred in these sort of mental work camps. Most of the career of your youth, you're never allowed to think or feel or attain to anything beyond what's placed before you and just given to you in force fed in a textbook. So we go through that, of course, and they had one bus for our little route. So it would go where we were sandwiched between 3 native reservations. So the bus would do our loop first because we were at the very end. And then it would drop us off at school at about 7 a.m. and school would start till 8. It would go out and pick everybody else up. We had just the way time was broken up for us was kind of strange. So there was an hour in the morning just sitting at school doing nothing, hustling through milking goats and whatever other chores needed to be done. Then you get home, there were afternoon chores or homework, whatever that was, basically staring at a blank page for a couple hours until, you just sort of finally tapped out. And then there was dinner, family dinner was kind of a ritual in our household. It was required, whether you liked it or not. Your butt better be in the church pew. We had a big church pew. It was only going to fit everybody. And it was this whole rustic church pew, so a lot of splinters, and you learned very early never to. So then, after that, after clearing up and after putting all, if there's any food away, after taking the trash down, after, bedding down the animals and feeding them one time, then you got to jump or whatnot. Got about an hour to sit at the piano or pick up the guitar. The first instrument I really rushed with, I think, was probably the oboe. Mm-hmm. It was the first one that was kind of tough. The piano was always pretty easy because I realized from a young age. Oh, we got some cookies here. Thank you.
She's going to serve you there.
Yeah. Poolside cookies. We can serve cookies. It's better than being served jury duty. But it's the oboe is tough because it's just a nasty instrument. I mean, I'm not even sure it's really meant to be played. And even when you get the sound good, it has a very timbre that is, it kind of stands out, for better or for worse. The piano, when I was young, I was maybe 4 or 5, and I realized that the piano is just a construct and we're around with this all the time, and so basically my mind took over. I didn't ever really have to think about it because my mind was always able to compose in the background and able to craft the background. I mean, there's a certain level of dexterity and coordination, but anybody can play the piano. It's like anybody can kind of play the drums. I mean, not well, but you just start hitting it, and all of a sudden, there it is. Yeah. With the guitar, if you start hitting it, who knows what's going to happen? It could hit back. But the oboe was a tough one. But I was young enough where, when you're young, it's easy to pick things up and to learn. So I never really considered how difficult it was until later. I just started playing it and I wrestled with it. I liked the challenge, and then I wouldn't get to the guitar until some years after that. But by then, I was used to wrestling with these instruments. I knew that kind of. When you approach the new instrument, whether it was bagpipes, whether it was certainly the guitar, you kind of knew, all right, we're going to circle around each other for a little while. We're going to do a little bit, and sort of peripherally just sort of size each other up. It's going to be a few sort of furtive little glances and touches, trying to see how friendly it's going to be, and you're trying to figure out how to touch it with sort of reverence, but also sort of confidence, and it's trying to find that inflection point of humility and arrogance, approaching that, thinking, because you're always enamored of the possibility, you always think, if I if I can figure this out, even just a little bit, everything that's in here and here is going to find a way out.
Mm-hmm.
And other people are going to get to sort of hop on that ride, and we're going to be able to communicate for a second. Because otherwise, communicating is impossible. It's just impossible. I mean, look around, look at the world. No one's communicating about anything in a very, very simple manner. Thank God for music. Y'all know music. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
has anybody ever said I hate music? I mean, it's like donuts. There's something for everybody.
So Jesse, you grew up in a really unique household. So take us to age 16 to that young man. And was it a good or bad experience leaving that and going out into the world? Like what was your experience is different. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Wow, I mean, did we ever really leave? Did we ever really break out of our 12-year-old selves? I mean, are we just haunted by the sort of plagiarism of our youth? I mean, for me, I was remarking upon this to my brother just from the drive over here. I mean, we grow in our sense of prestige in our own eyes, perhaps. And we accrue more material weight, in gravity. We get money, we get jobs. And it's like, do we ever... Everyone's still just going to be devastated if a potential romantic interest doesn't give you the time of day. We're still open to that sort of dejection, no matter how old we get. So, I guess where I'm going with that is, I mean, and maybe you're right. Maybe because it was such it was an odd and sort of unique. I mean, saying odd, you said unique or different, but it was an odd way to grow up, I think. But everyone around us was at the time. I mean, it was all sort of. Lots of people trying to really get off the grid. I mean, there were people out there by electricity, just living, talking and screwing by candlelight. I mean, that's the community. So it didn't seem odd to us, but by today's standards, I mean, by God, we might have been raised on the planetoid Plutoid. We might have been raised on some sort. But so leaving that behind. I mean, I got to be honest with you. The biggest shock, and maybe you could relate to this because I mean, y'all are aficionados and advocates for music, but I didn't really hear music until I left home. I was 16, and that was kind of when I first. It was the most shocking thing. It wasn't talking to people and getting high for the first time, or tasting alcohol, or the writings of Nietzsche. I mean, it was that was all. I put that in stride. I feel like I was given a certain amount of grace to take that in stride, but I was not ready for it. I mean, getting System of a Down. I gotta go back to the script here. There's a lot of ground that's being covered. There's a lot that I could do with this guitar and the piano. If I could just get it back down and kind of learn from all of this amazing music. So that was the most shocking thing. And I mean, you probably remember there wasn't algorithms back then.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't computers telling us what we should listen to or what we like or what's desirable or what's trending or what's popular. Back then, you were on your own. And it's like, how many $20 bills do I have to buy CDs with this week? Oh, one. Like, I got one CD. And if you're going through CD warehouse, you're like, well, this cover's kind of compelling. I mean, maybe we'll start there. I mean, buying CDs blind. You remember what that was like? Or certainly later. And that's, again, I mean, vinyl is coming out ahead as time is telling. But, vinyl, you go into some of those vinyl shops, especially if it's used, you can put the vinyl on. You can hear a bit of the vinyl if you wanted to. But with CDs, a lot of the times it's like, all right. I mean, I only got $20. I really hope. Yeah. I really hope this is going to be a transformative experience. I mean, that's what you're aiming for.
It's a gamble.
Unless it's a gamble, unless you're just hoping to get something you can dance to by yourself in your living room, which I still do.
Yeah, we had friends who, a bunch of us, luckily, who would buy. If my friend bought something, I could listen to that. If I bought.
So borrowing. He turned me on to a bunch of music. This was vinyl to cassette to CD, all in the 80s. And we were able to borrow a lot that way. Yeah, it's, as young adults, right. 18 and.
So by but back then, word of mouth. Like you said, you can go on Facebook, Instagram, and someone recommend
you can taste it.
Thousands of
now you can taste anything
things every day. Back then,
taste anything. Go on.
Yeah. So tell us a little.
Hello, what's your name? Can I taste you?
So tell us a
How's
little.
The latest record? Tasteable.
Taste me. That's your next album. Taste me.
So Jesse,
Taste me, my friend.
That's your next. That's your next.
Headbang, headbang with me. Come on.
You just wrote a new song.
That was early '90s.
So Jesse,
music. Put that on.
Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the legend Morrissey.
Yes.
You became his tour manager for 5 years.
Yeah.
Is we need to know, is Morrissey a good dude?
Is it cool?
Whoa. Well, let me figure out if I'm even a good dude because the jury's still out. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, he's one of those artists where when he talks, I don't really talk about it that much, but why do I not talk about it that much? I think because there's, I certainly will engage with the topic. That's for sure. If I ever pass on something, I'll just start talking about something else.
Okay.
Yeah. And we don't want you to judge.
Tasting in a different direction.
We're not asking you to judge. We're just curious and looking for anything on Morrissey. We love the Smiths and his first album is it Viva Hate? His first solo, I think. I loved it. I know it well. So that's why we're asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't talk about it because it just doesn't come up because I mean we're living in a time when people don't even really know who David Bowie is. I was on a date once upon a time and the girl had never heard David Bowie.
Wow.
So I think that's why I don't really, it doesn't come up. And then also there was a level of propriety and certain parts of the experience belonged to me just because of how informative an education it was for me. I mean, that's where I really got to learn everything, and it was also very tough. I thought I was going to get fired every day for the first year. I ended up staying for about 5 years. And it was very challenging in all of the ways that people might imagine. It's kind of the old guard of rock stars and pop stars and just artists, So it was kind of interesting. And I was coming in completely blind to this job. I was there kind of just helping out a friend who, the guy that preceded me had washed out by putting the band on the wrong train in Spain.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it was raining or not. Oh. Yeah. But so he got fired sort of unceremoniously. And I was out here in Nashville for, it was John Prine's manager, Bunetta. He had just passed away. And my mother had just passed away a mere 3 months prior. And he was really instrumental to me as a mentor, but also in the passing of my mother, I sort of came up here on a whim. It was my mother's last behest to me while she was conscious was just go up to Nashville. You should, because she passed away in Florida. It was within striking distance. So even though it was on her deathbed, I just sort of, it was, no one knew how long she was going to be around. No one really knew what to do with their hands when they weren't in there sort of attending her. We're all just sort of staring there and drawing bottles of wine, So I got in the car and whipped up here, and before I was living here, and Al and his wife, Dawn, were instrumental in sort of passing along this sort of right ritual that they had sort of this amalgam of sort of Eastern and spiritual, but also down home because they lost their son, being very young. And they sort of had this very beautiful ritual they enacted. And so you don't even, until you've lost somebody, you don't know what it's going to be like. Strangers walking in with surgical gloves and, foreigners and what happens with all the medications, you don't know what's going to happen. And so they in true mentorship fashion, they were so good at us to impart that to me. And so I took that back down. My mom passed while I was here. And so I drove back down as soon as I heard. And I said, hey, I just was up there with Al. And he told this. And I just sort of passed along with my family. We enacted it. We did it. And it ended up being beautiful. It wasn't this terrible thing with strangers or this hostile environment. It was this home environment. We all just stood around her body. My sisters and I prepared the body. It was this beautiful and very primal, visceral thing. It was beautiful where it could have been horrible. And since then, we've really learned a lot about grieving and dying, and the whole death, conspiracy, the whole death history. And anyway, so Al had just died. I came out here at his request, and his last request was that I come and I perform at his memorial. So I played the song. Morrissey's then tour manager was there, who was a guy that I had known. He helped me get gigs early on, my brother and I, throughout the Southeast, including Nashville. Because we were just bust back then. We didn't know how to get gigs. So he said to me, hey, do you want to fly out to Sydney, Australia, for a couple of shows with Morrissey? The guy who just needs somebody with a pulse to come in and just help bring the band and help with costume changes, that sort of thing. or preparing wardrobe, And so I was like, well, I guess. So I went out and, night one, first of all, Morrissey is an artist who, as soon as anyone hears that there's any sort of inspirational orbit to this person or this entity or this art, people want to know about it. He's one of those artists. If I said, oh, I worked with No Doubt. People don't care about No Doubt stories. Oh, No Doubt, what was it like? It's like, oh, that's cool. No Doubt's cool. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
When
I think I heard of them.
cool. But more like, well, it's like, go on, tell us about that. So, night one, a stage invader jumped off of the box there at the City Opera House, broke his leg on a case on the way down just to try to run up and hug Morrissey. So it was 5 years of that sort of thing.
Wow.
Broke his leg and everything.
Crazy errands on Sundays, American countries, looking for all manner of requests and dealing with a lot of big personalities. And to answer your question, Morrissey is a consummate artist, and just by being around, just by being permitted to be in that camp, it was like a master class in writing songs of a certain view. Things that are going to be different, but are going to be accepted, where it's not so obscure that people can't understand, but it's also challenging the listener. But something about it works. The permission to kind of talk about dark that maybe people don't want to talk about. Playing with words. They're always playing with words. They're funny. They're not afraid to get political, or not afraid to attack people. And also, the biggest takeaway for me was getting to see that these people live the lifestyle of being artists. It wasn't just about, because I think a lot of people, oh, I'm an artist when I write this song. The song is my art. Seeing Morrissey in action in a band. Because my first gig was just like wrangling, like steaming their wardrobe. I still got a star in the Tonight Show, steelhead steamers backstage, when I was young and green. It's the perfect circle, I just say it's my tattoo, for my love for Tool and Perfect Circle. But in truth, it's a steamer burn from when I was working on the Morrissey tour. But I got to see that, really artistry is the whole life. And it's not just the song. The song is just sort of one outcropping. It's sort of one venture, but it's like the way you compose yourself, the way that you speak, the food that you eat, the things that you drink, the way that you walk. It's all, that is the art. That is where you're the artist. The songwriting part, if you think about it, is the easy part, because we've done it so much. Even if it's no good, you've been doing it for 20 years. You can write off, But learning how to find good music. Those guys love amazing music. They turn me on to everything from Charles Aznavour to Echo Belly. They cover a wide swath of different really amazing music. And he was always very kind to me. It wasn't like a direct mentorship thing. I was very much.
Hold on one second. Our internet.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Work, and it was
there. Now you're back.
Board. There was never anything. It was all in good fun. It was all in good fun. But yeah, they were kind to me. They were very funny. It took a long time to sort of out my place there and to kind of get familiarize myself enough with them where they felt like I wasn't where I was, I guess, part of the crew. But
and I think from what you're saying, you grew up in a different
my tattoo right there.
Yeah. Oh, what do we got there?
Now my heart is full. Yeah, it's weird. So yeah, I'm not one of these sentimental guys with tattoos, but I guess in this one case, it made me step. Yeah, good song.
And in the meantime, I dream in black and white. Side effects of peroxide. And the kitchen light lies in the kitchen drawer, a little dirtier than it was before. And the police report ain't so cut and dried no more. There's nothing good about goodbye. Your blue eyes turn black when you cry. She said, drop dead.
So let's get to the new album here. I honestly had never heard of you before until this past week.
Jesse.
From the first song, I loved your voice. This album I've listened to at least 3 times, I think. And
thank you.
This is your second album this year. I have the feeling that were these songs written along with the first album? I just saw a video of you doing one of the songs, Whatever Happened To, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned COVID. And maybe let's talk about that song.
Well, yeah, I think Rob has an answer. I think you're asking a question in the song, and you've got answers, right?
Yeah, Whatever Happened To, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that song? I just love that song.
Oh, well, thanks for taking the time to listen. And, you know, a lot of, I mean, you know, people, we consume so much music, and people really understand, even if, you know, there's this adage now that, oh, anyone can make a record on their laptop in their apartment, which is true, but it still takes so much energy and emotional effort and commitment to make any sort of record and put it out there. And this is 3 years in the running.
Okay.
I'm not unique in that I've worked very hard on it, and it's been a massive sacrifice to try to put this thing out. I never would have put it out except for people around me were able to sort of carry me across the finish line. You know, I knew in my heart of hearts that record was just going to sit on my hard drive until I died. I was convinced of that. And then some people came along. Denny over at Cavity First Records, who was one of the guys that gave Elliott Smith his start there in Portland. And Tim Flammy here in Nashville, who was Lucinda Williams, Jason Isbell's publicist, which is how I got to know him. They kind of championed the cause. And so that's why it's here. And for whatever reason, that song, Whatever Happened, you know, people seem to like that song, even though I listen to it now and I'm like, I feel like so one time I went on a jog, and I was kind of waking up in the morning trying to find my jogging shorts, and I reached my door, and I had gotten about half a mile and I realized I was jogging in my underwear. I put on some underwear. Or, you know, I just lapped it out. But I mean, I feel like I just jogged out the house completely naked. I'm looking around and people like, and I feel
it's something cooler.
You know, I was like, wow, people have heard that song, and I'm talking to them with just a little bit of embarrassment. I mean, that song is so weird. You know, all these songs are so strange, and people are hearing it as of yesterday. And I'm like, are people giving me a wider than normal berth? You know, like,
well, Allison,
people seem to like
you
that
dated
song.
Allison. Yeah,
I think it's a incredible album. I listen to a lot of music, and not many. I can't remember the last time I listened to an album like 3 times and still loved it listening to it the third time.
But I want to talk about Allison. That's great. So Allison is out there, and he dated Allison.
Not your Allison.
No. Well, I don't know.
Song.
You don't know.
But she had a cat, right? Well, in the song. I don't know if it's true. Eddie, right?
Right.
Whatever happened to pink-haired Allison? A casualty casually occupying her 5th floor east side apartment, accompanied only by Addie the tabby cat. She was lonely long before loneliness became the fad. And what about Ashton down in Nashville town? She lost it all.
Yeah, it's all very
but we have Eddie though. We have to tell you.
My cat Eddie.
Take a look. Can you see it?
Oh,
go up there. Little glare.
Incredible. Yeah, that's amazing.
There it is.
Yeah. His name is Eddie.
Yeah.
He's a tabby.
Yeah.
Well, a fan sent me a painting, you know, without any. I got home from tour and there was a package. I opened it. It's a painting of a cat, and all it says is, "This is Addie the tabby cat." And so they sent me a painting of a cat,
Oh,
and for whatever reason, people gravitate towards that song, even though it's kind of a broken mantra. You know, it's kind of this. You know, it's so unresolved, but you know, we've all been through COVID, which we can all sort of have common ground about which to speak. I mean, that's kind of a special thing. I mean, it's a tragedy, but you know, we've all gone through this thing, so we all kind of remember the art, the story art, and the feeling art.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a COVID record in that it wasn't kind of, I was at home, I had all this material, I was talking about being locked in my house. But with the record, it was in that kind of weird time between when people were doing that and when things had reopened. So it was in that kind of blah. It was in that sort of general sense malaise. It was in that season of ennui, and so that's what comes through on the record. But then, that lyrically and sort of tonally, but then you listen to the aggressive tempos, the aggressive tones. And when Joe Ciccarelli, who is another guy I met through the Morrissey camp, and he's done like the Strokes and the Shins and the White Stripes, amazing artist. I mean, he's the guy that made it sound that way. If you heard the board mix, none of us would have ever listened to it again. We would have been like, this is okay, I guess. But he just charged, he called me and he said, he's like, I really love this record. I'll do it just kind of as a favor. And I think I'll just put drama into it. And I was like, okay, it's about as dramatic as I can get. But when he sent it back, I was floored. I went over and I listened to it on Lucinda Williams. Lucinda Williams is a neighbor. She lives in the neighborhood here. And she has one of those Macintosh Ferrari style hi-fi systems. Her husband, Tom, was like, he's her manager and also a friend. You guys would love him. He's such a music guy. But he was like the buyer for Best Buy, like back when Best Buy was like top of the top. So they have like this killer system. When I got the mix back from Joe, I went to her house and I put it on, and the thing just screamed out of the wall. And I was just like, so that with this sort of sense of this almost sort of lackadaisical, sort of low energy, sort of breast lyrical tone and character, and then this full speed gallop charge of sonically. I think I listen to it now too because enough time has gone by where I can listen to it sort of fresh. And I'll be like, what is going on here? It's like so dissonant. And there are moments of melodic breakthrough. The harmony is prevalent. Everything else is just screaming and wailing and can't seem to make up its mind what it's going to do. And then it's over. Then you're like, okay. I had a friend message me on Instagram. She just flew over from Rome and is back in Florida. And she said, I had to listen to it. As soon as I finished, I had to turn it over. And I was like, oh, really? That's a good sign. It's like, not even necessarily because I loved it. I don't know if I love it yet, but because I had to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and as we listen to it, I'm wondering if you play all the instruments, or I haven't had enough time to investigate this, and so wondering what instruments you play on your latest album.
Yeah, I do play all the instruments. My friend Katie came into the. Normally I do all the drums and percussion. In this case, my friend Katie Heron, she's a badass drummer. I'm also the godfather to her son. But she drums for like mainly jazz or mainly metal, so that's kind of her. She doesn't really do anything in between. So so she added the drums, and then my friend and sort of soul collaborator partner Lauren Farrer, who is now I guess in Peru taking photos of indigenous tribes. She sings all the harmony, and she sings on everything I do and always does.
Yeah,
and the two of them really give it the character, And it's not something you can ever hire somebody to do. It's something that only friends and people who have really plugged some time and some life together can kind of get on that train. So thank God, thank Jesus, God, all about whoever, for bringing them into my life and for allowing them to stick by me long enough to climb this particular mountain with me. So I'm very proud of them and their work on that record.
Yeah, I can hear that. You can really hear that.
Now, is there a tour planned? I saw you're playing at Floyd Fest, which I always wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And will you have a band with you, or are you just playing solo?
Yeah, y'all are welcome with us anytime. And yeah, kind of any gig we'll do at the moment. I mean, people are, myself and others are looking to get any sort of gig we can for the fall, and want to just keep the momentum going. Everyone's worked hard to get the record out, and now want to keep that going with some live dates. So currently looking around and got some lines in the water, and I think fall. Look at fall.
Okay.
I wish we had more time, but we're going to have to move on soon. Yeah, wish we had twice as much time, but you look like you're having a good time.
It's a pleasure chatting with y'all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesse. Enjoy the sun. And
I got one more comment. Thank you so much. I know you grew up around Native people, Native American people, and Lauren's doing that work. I just really I commend that, and it's a great thing. So thank you.
The first artist I ever really got to know was an artist named Carlos, who was a classmate of mine, who was a Native artist. And that was also formative. So thank you for that. Thank you for that shout.
Yeah.
These guys, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Peace.
Yeah, catch you around. See ya.
I say you'd have said so by now. We're having a baby. I swear I lost your number. I've been waiting for your call and now it's already December. I never wanna see you again. I'm coming over. I wish we had more to say, but we'd have said so by now.
You've been listening to No Good Music. Today's interview was produced and edited by Rob J. Lilly and recorded via Zoom at the Did You Say
7
Studios in Washington, New Jersey. You can find No Good Music on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Pandora, and almost anywhere you listen to podcasts. The songs Backyard Party, MBA, Drop Dead and Die, Whatever Happened To, and Missed Call from Evangeline, used with permission from Jesse Daniel Edwards.